Kia ora koutou and good morning, everyone. Could I ask you all to please stand for our opening karakia? Whakataka te hau.
Ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te taonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana i te tatakura, e tio, e huka, e hauhu, te hapi, ario.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning to councillors, staff, to public and community in our gallery, to those online, and welcome back to Councillor Lawrence, who's recovering. Could I please call for apologies? I've got Councillor Todd Choate and Todd's online. Oh, welcome, Todd. So therefore we have no apologies, just Councillor Choate and Councillor Lawrence online. Could I just acknowledge Councillor Choate and his family for the passing of Colleen. Sympathies to you, Councillor, and your family. Well done yesterday on a beautiful ceremony and farewell to Colleen. I'm sure she would have been very proud of you kids and the grandkids, so well done. This morning we have public forum, so could I please call on, I think it's Shelley, no, it's Dave. Call on Dave Ellison to present.
Yep.
Councillor Nipiatu.
Yeah, well, I have a conflict of interest with the petition, as I'm a signatory on the petition.
Yes.
So I'm withdrawing from discussion on the topic this morning.
Thank you, Councillor Nipiatu. So we welcome Dave, Judith and Shelley to present the petition and speak to it. So we do have the petition in paper in our files, so we'll take that as read, but the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So, morning council. So, thank you for hearing us today. We ask you all that you read our letters that support our petition and understand the true physical, social and financial impact the closure of Burnside Bridge has and continues to have on the Kakavau community and surrounding districts. We also want you to think, how has our roading network become so vulnerable? Where have we gone wrong? In the future, we want you to look at tier 2 companies to repair or replace aging infrastructure to NZTA standards without the inflated prices, unnecessary cost overruns that seem to come with tier 1 providers, saving ratepayers millions and still have the roading network we rely on. 59% of 9 million versus 59% of 4 million. The HB survives on rural and urban combined, and a good roading network is essential. And finally, we'd like you to listen to local knowledge, as Burnside Bridge would have been saved along with a lot of other infrastructure for the sake of the few hours of the digger. The next weather event is on its way. Are we prepared? Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
Great.
65 minutes, so.
Yeah.
Very efficient. So happy to take any questions from the floor from councillors of Dave. Might be some questions.
Everyone agrees, that's great.
Councillor Moynihan.
I just need clarification, please. I just need to know the reason for prioritising the repair of Guavas Road Bridge under the Cyclone Recovery Programme. I believe, and I just need to know if it's yes or no, was bridge repaired because there was only public road access for those properties beyond that crossing? Is that correct?
Yeah, we weren't supposed to be asking questions staff, but happy.
Mr. Kenvig, are you able to?
Yeah, through you, your worship.
Yeah, Guavas Road was 100% funded by NZTA, and it was emergency response fund. Initially, and it was completed in June 24 from memory, just before I arrived in council. My understanding is there was an alternative bridge, but it was heavily weight restricted, and it was on private land. So yeah, there was no safe alternative, and it was under an emergency kind of response as opposed to this kind of response, which is recovery.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. And question?
So I also have the confidence now that Latties can can rebuild our bridge, existing bridge. Replace the existing bridge for 3.5 to 3.8 million. So that's something else if we want to go down that track and to NZTA. And I've got it in writing here from Latties last night. I'll read it out actually. Hi Dave, based on the information available and following our recent site visit to Burnside Bridge, Laddie Group estimates the cost to replace the bridge and in use for the new single lane structure to be in the range of 3.5 to 3.8 million. This excludes demolition of the existing bridge, which we estimate would cost of an additional 250 to 300k. Before replacement is approved, Laddie Group is ready to proceed by engaging our structural engineers, geotechnical specialists to undertake the required investigation and develop a complete design and build package and formal quotation.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Well, that's obviously new information and happy to receive that as well as part of your presentation. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, day job as a journalist, been quite intrigued by some of the things that haven't been corrected in media articles, and certainly some of the inaccuracies in the letters that come with the petition, sadly. I point to 2 fire brigade comments that are both factually incorrect.
Well,
death and resulting from a delay in the fire brigade going to a call out, and 2 firefighters taking 10 minutes to go to the station after the bridge was closed. And I wonder, my question is just, are you able to be more proactive with correcting some of the inaccuracies in the public information that's going out about this? It makes it harder and more emotional.
I'll answer that, Kate. It's a fair call. We can't talk to the letter that you're specifically.
One is Dave's and one is Graham Finlay's. So,
but we're not perfect. We're just community advocates here.
The one from Graham, I think, said that it didn't say that the letter was that the death was a result of the. It said that the response took that much longer, and that caused a lot of angst amongst people who were in the brigade.
as I say, I took umbrage at that, and so.
the information in my letter came from Jason Ward, who is the people I'm talking about. He's a tender driver, and he's also I put in there paramedic, but he used to be the head of a ED in England, so he knows a bit about health.
So what we're really here today is you can pick a number out of our community drawn case that we've given you. You can choose a letter that is maybe not 100% correct. We can pick apart this whole thing either way, either direction. We can, hang on a second, we can pick apart what you're saying and you can pick apart what we're saying. So what we'd like to happen is that we want the NZTA and we want council to take this investigation, look at it further, talk to people, get things. If you're unhappy about the media, we don't have control over what the media says. Yes, we have control about letters. You can talk to Dave after this. But we want to move forward to a repair or a replacement of our bridge. And we're asking you with this petition to reopen the investigation. Don't demolish our bridge. Look at the information we've given and take it forward for us. We have day jobs. We all have day jobs. This is volunteer. We've had to drive over here. We've had to get our petition. We got almost 400 signatures in about 3 weeks. We got about half a dozen letters in about a week. We're doing a lot of the legwork here, and we'd like council to agree to advocate for us, please.
Thanks, Shelley. Any other questions in the group?
Just one.
Councillor Moynihan.
I just noted in this, one of the submissions about the State Highway 50 bridge. So just going forward for myself, mate, I don't need a report, but just an update on the estate if it was damaged at Cyclone Gabriel, in what extent and what's there, because I did not know anything about it. So just future down, not today, but yeah, just to follow up if I could please, so I can get information on that.
Yeah. No, good point, Councillor Moynihan. Councillor Byrne.
There has been an indication from NZTA that if we don't go with the demolition and they'll withdraw the contribution, was it about 560,000? And we'd have to reapply, which is fine, we can reapply, but there's no guarantee that we will get money for a rebuild. And I'm not attempting to be funny here or anything like that, but I'm just wondering how you would see us funding it if we did not get a contribution from NZTA. I recall a long time ago when the Waipawa and the Waipokoro high streets were done up, there was a targeted rate for the Waipawa and the Waipokoro community. So, you know, the Takapo community did not have to fund the high streets in Waipawa and Waipokoro. Is that something that's been socialised with, because you've put in the submissions how big the community is out there? Has that been socialised?
Our job today is to come here not to talk about funding. We're not technical, we're not funders, we aren't the people asking for the funding. We're asking council and you, Councillor Byrne, to actually agree to reopen the investigation and go forward with all those technical aspects. I'm sure you've got very great officials here and in NZTA. Anything like that, you would have to go back to the community with a proper consultation, I would suggest. What I would say is the several bridges during after Cyclone Gabriel were 100% funded by NZTA. And I would be asking NZTA, the government and this council to advocate for that for our community. So yes, we aren't the funders. We're asking for council to advocate for us, and anything else you'd have to go back to the community and ask.
We also have the proposal of the repair, the firm quote from Latties, which is, you guys will know, 852K. So that's a cost-effective solution to this problem. It includes demolishment of the damaged piece of the bridge, removal, so you know, that outweighs the cost, that were a minimal cost to council if NZTA will fund that. And judging by your meeting yesterday, Will, that there was quite a positive meeting with Linda from NZTA, and hopefully with Karen McAnulty that you can get that over the line. They're really happy to look at it, so haven't said no.
I mean, what Dave's done is he's given options. It's may not be the one you take or the NZA takes, but Dave's done a hell of a lot of work for the community here, and I think he should be given some, you know, props for that. And
We do it because we love Takapau and the amazing community, but Central Hawke's Bay on a whole is an amazing place to be. You can't all argue with that. So we need a good roading network. We saw after Cyclone Gabrielle, you had no communication, you had no power. So if you had a roading network, at least you can help people, and that is really important.
Takapau was one of the least affected areas with Cyclone Gabriel, and is one of the safest areas of Central Hawke's Bay. And let's keep it so that all the networks are available.
And the way now that the Takapau school bus with my granddaughter's on has to turn off Nelson Road onto Highway 50. So what's it going to take for that school bus to be T-boned by a logging truck or something like that? A very dangerous intersection. And I'm going to have 2 more grandchildren on that bus shortly, so we need to take that into account.
Okay, hey, guys, thanks for coming in. Thank you for all the work you are doing in the community. And you know, whether people agree with you or not, it's, you know, it needs to be admired what, you know, the work you've put in, the signatures you've got done very well. So we appreciate that. We appreciate you bringing that this morning. It will be considered based on the meeting yesterday. Just as you know, we are looking at all options. We're trying to do what we can to help advocate, because we know we're only partners in this with NZTA. And so there is work ongoing. And so, yeah, and apologies, it takes time in local and central government with things like this, but yeah, there is still plenty of work going on. So we're doing our best, but thank you for coming in, and let's just keep the communication up and see where we get to.
Well, the way we see it, that by using a cheaper option to replace this bridge means Todd Road Bridge, Wilson's Cutting Bridge, they all be funded, all be repaired, a lot less cost moving forward, especially with, you know, there'd be other weather events. And if this highlights use of different companies to get the same outcome.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Could I just call for someone to move that we receive? Thanks, Deputy Korea. I have a seconder, Councillor Nepi up to. All those in favour? Thanks, carried.
I'm sorry.
Can I move?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was a conflict of interest. I just put
Thank you.
my hand up, used to it, sorry, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, second, yeah. My mistake as well. Right.
Just with regards that, I do think that there are a lot of inaccuracies in what we've just received. I just want it noted that these are now public documents, and there are a lot of inaccuracies in the letters and the letter that came with the petition. So I love the petition, but I just want to highlight that there are inaccuracies in those documents.
Okay, we're able to note that with the receiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd second that too.
Well, it doesn't have to be a motion, just,
Well, it's everyone that
Just a-
passed still happy with
Just a note.
yes,
yeah.
yeah, because it's a
No, I
public
agree.
document and there's a lot that's wrong in there. The firefighter ones were just 2 that I knew were incorrect, but there's a lot of other stuff in there in terms of timing, distance, etc. that
Just trying to get back into order here. So apologies. Any other conflicts of interest for the rest of the meeting today, other than what we've already known up to? Right. So that brings us on to our first report. Topic of the day, simplifying local government. And we welcome Wayne Eagleson online. Welcome, Wayne.
Morning, everybody.
Ross, are you going to set up this? Presentation up on the just while getting set up, obviously Mr. Muggeridge has been the key staff member working on this in the background, but is on leave this week, I believe. So Mr. McLeod will take over.
That's right. Didn't manage to have a good handover and I think I know what he's done and the good work that's gone before. So morena tato, councillors, this is bringing back to you the simplifying local government issue that has been the subject of a number of workshops and community engagement meetings in recent times. And I just will take the report as mainly read, but we'll make just a brief presentation to note a few things and also just walk through the decision tree, if you like, for the way the recommendations are set out. And we'll hand over to Wayne at certain points. Just jump in, Wayne, if you've got anything you wish to add.
Morning, boss. Thank you.
So the key purpose of today is to formally consider whether the council wishes to continue in the regional process in relation to Head Start as we develop up the outline proposal. If the answer to that is yes, then the secondary pieces of decision are to consider and indicate a preferred option for the development, the preferred reorganisation option for the development of the draft outline proposal, and to provide guidance on some of the detail of those arrangements, noting that they have to be discussed and negotiated alongside the other councils that participate. So it's not a matter of deciding detail today, it's a matter of indicating preferences. Next slide, please, Emily. So just a recap of the process. We obviously had the ministerial announcement that kicked us off on the 5th of May. We had a workshop in May with Wayne. We decided to enter into the memorandum of understanding to work with the other Hawke's Bay councils. We've had Dylan Muggeridge as part of the officers working group across the region, developing the thinking and the background of all this. Another workshop in June, and then entering into the community engagement process. There was an initial phase with a survey, and then obviously the meetings and submissions over the past sort of 3 weeks that submissions closed on Sunday. And alongside that, and as part of it, we've been undertaking engagement with our Māori communities in Mana Whenua as well. Today we're at the point of this meeting and considering participation in preferred options, and then in the next 2 to 3 weeks there'll be more work, obviously working alongside the other councils. A workshop with you next week, looking at some of that further work and starting to work on some of the detail of the outline proposal. Further refinement following those workshops, and coming back on the 5th of August for a final decision from council. Just a couple of things to note, and there's been a little bit of commentary around some of these in key in some circles. The Head Start process is government policy option that the council's been invited to respond to. So there's been some questioning about its legality, but it's not. It's a policy process that's in development. There's no administrative law decision making process that governs this. We're going forward with an outline proposal with further processes to follow and potentially legislation if the policy process moves ahead. While this has been quite a rushed process, we do have a good basis for the development of an outline proposal within that policy process. We've had some really good input from community engagement. The council's own views on behalf of the community are important. So this process today, the workshop next week, what you've already expressed so far is important in shaping that outline proposal. We have agreed regionally some vision and outcomes for the process that are in the agenda report. And again, that government criteria and guidance of what they're likely to look at and sort of pick up and run with is important as well. And some of the things, and you've got access to all of the submission material and the sort of preferences that have been indicated, both from our council and for others, but from our community, you know, the positive, I guess, of if this can deliver more affordable services or moderate cost increases into the future, then it's worth looking at. But also key things that have come through: local access to services, local identity, local voice and decision making, and effective and equitable representation were themes that came through really strongly in that community engagement process. So the key question, I guess, is does council wish to continue the first decision in the Head Start process? And I guess the two major considerations there, you know, if we do, we have some influence over the reorganisation outcomes and shaping the proposal that goes forward. If we don't, we're waiting for the government-led backstop process that they've outlined will happen following the next election. Obviously, noting that the next local government election, noting that you know, there's a central government election to come before that time. If the decision is to remain in the Head Start process, that high level options, sorry, just back one, is between a single unitary authority for the region and or a two unitary authorities, which does depend both on this council's decisions and the decisions of other councils, with a contingent model of a unitary authority for parts of the region if any council decides not to join Head Start. We don't know that yet, but there is a possibility that we may be dealing with 3 councils opting in and one not wishing to join. And then obviously seeking some guidance and preferences on the more detailed options below that. If there's you know, a unitary authority or authorities, you know, whether there's just a single tier layer of decision making, a 2-tier layer, and there's several options that can be chosen around that. That's, you know, where local boards come in, or the option which hasn't really found favour with anyone that I've seen is a unitary council with advisory boards. That, particularly for our community, that notion of local decision making on key issues and strong local representation has been clear and almost very consistent through the feedback we've received. So the details of those things are still to be worked through if we're going forward, and we really can take forward some preferences today, but we'll come back and workshop with you next week on how those things are shaping up. And just noting that part of the discussion still to be had, a key theme that came through our engagement is those issues of Māori representation and how we ensure we give effect to treaty settlement redress. Those issues are still live and need to be worked through in the design of the outline proposal. Even if they're not finalised by the time it goes in, they are live issues, and the engagement we've had both locally and through the regional engagement with Te Kāhui Ohanga and the PSGEs has been very strong and positive in that regard. And apologies from Liz Munro from the whenua. She was hoping to be here to present some of that regional work, but hasn't been able to make it this morning. So, but has been engaged in through Paris Greening on behalf of Te Kahu. We all hung a strong engagement there as well. So just in summary, points to note, today's not a final decision. It's an approval to undertake further work, and in noting that further input and further decision making to come from around this council table. The outline proposal, obviously, I don't like stating the obvious, but here we go, does need to be developed and agreed with the other participating councils. And just noting again that a single unitary authority, if that's the option that emerges, may not mean all of the councils in Hawke's Bay. There's a possibility of an opt-out there. And one thing we think that's been consistently said, and we think we share it with other councils, is because of the rush time and the limited nature of the engagement, that in putting forward an outline proposal, we're going to highlight in there, or want to highlight in there, that it should include a condition of it being subject to more extensive community consultation. And I know there's been some emails on that, and I think you're going to pick up that when we get to the resolutions. So I'll end my starting comments there, and I'll just perhaps hand over to Mr. Eagleson, Your Worship, if he's got anything he wishes to add.
Thanks, Ross, and through you, Your Worship. Really, just a couple of very brief comments, because I think Ross has given an excellent summary there of the sort of the task before us today and over the next couple of weeks. I really just wanted to make a couple of points. The first one is, as someone that's sort of from outside your region, I've been really heartened over the last few weeks at the constructive approach, not only at your district council, but also across the region, that people have taken to this. You know, Ross made the point that it is a pretty, it is a pretty quick process. There's been a huge amount of work that's had to be undertaken, at both at council officer level, but also for elected members. So really appreciate that. I do think today, and it's interesting that, you know, this afternoon I'll be attending a meeting at Hastings District Council. My colleague Lawrence Yule is going to be at Napier City Council this afternoon. So obviously we are kind of getting to that crunch point. As I say, I think Ross has taken us through nicely the decision tree and some of the points of discussion. For me, I think one of the key things to today is really going to be to flush out the things that are particularly important to you as a district, whether it's around local voice, representation, and so on, because there will be a process, as Ross has talked about, over the next couple of weeks, where people from across the region have to get together and talk about some of these things and try and square the circle where there are different views. So I think to the extent to which we can flush out those key issues today, it'll be great, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. So again, Your Worship, thank you very much for having me, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Wayne, and thanks, Ross, for that intro. I think for me to start, just going back to that last slide, and the top point is, this isn't a final decision or commitment to this. It's simply a decision to keep progressing and explore, hopefully, what, you know, is an opportunity for this council in this region, because business as usual, we're always grappling with how we do things, how we achieve everything, you know, we would want, and it's you know, the sustainability thing keeps coming back to you know, when we look forward. So yeah, I think just important to note, this isn't a commitment to the final outcome. It's simply a commitment to keep progressing and exploring, and that's the, you know, probably the exciting part, is what is this opportunity. We need to do a lot of work to fully understand that. Right, so questions. Councillor Monahan.
Yes, thank you. So for me, I think, well, I'm hearing that I would say the majority would probably go with the Head Start process, what I'm sort of gathering of the councils once they have a look at this paper. Where I think where it could be a sticking point is when you get down to the more representative area, and there are options there. So Wayne, I think you covered it, but I just want to clarify. So we put our preferred options, and especially in that decision-making or advisory area.
Yep.
And then other councils do that. And what I hear, there could be different views on that. So going forward, everyone puts their recommendations in, and then if it is an extreme difference of point of view, do we then get together with other councils and try and thrash out the best option to put forward? Because if one's really stuck in the mud, do you say that we may have to give a take a little bit? Is this what I'm hearing?
Through you, your worship, I mean, I think in the end, both council officers and Lawrence and I have always been really aware of the fact that this is a political process. Small p, not party political, but it's a political process. And in that context, across, I mean, Ross made the point. I mean, there are 4 local authorities involved in this. The Wairoa people have got their own decision to make initially about whether they're involved in all, which is why, as you will have seen in the paper that you have before you today, that there is the option there about potentially a unitary authority that involves, part but not all of the region. So that's a legitimate part of the discussion. You then get into the question that even if, for example, there may be agreement around one unitary or whatever it might be, what does it then look like underneath, right? And that's a key question. I mean, one of the things that I've really appreciated, and this is now at least the 3rd opportunity I've had to well, one was in person, and these other 2, if not 3, have been virtually to sit around the table with you. The whole question of kind of local voice and local decision making is really important, and that's why there's been quite a bit of work done on it. So we can provide you separately. The IRO's done a lot of work looking into how local boards could potentially operate, looking at the Auckland example, looking at what happens overseas a little bit. At the Regional Collaboration Day coming up next Friday, which hopefully a number of you will be at, I've talked to the Auckland City Chief Executive. They're very happy. They're going to have 2 or 3 of their experienced local board members online available to talk a little bit about the kind of experience they've had and some of the learnings they've had in Auckland as they've developed since the so-called super city got underway in sort of 2009, 2010. So there is some work, I guess, and Hastings, I should say, just for one, are very interested in kind of understanding, how that 2-tier thing might operate. So from my point of view, I think it's important for you as a council to determine kind of what mix you think would work best. The other individual councils will go through that same process. And then, yes, the answer to your question is over the next couple of weeks, and Ross has set out the timeline quite nicely. There'll be opportunities to sit and have those discussions and see what compromises can be made and where it's sensible and so on. So I think it's a good discussion still to have. And for me, part of the benefit of today is kind of raising some of those key issues. And then there'll be a discussion. There'll be an opportunity for chief executives and senior council officers tomorrow to kind of, if you like, almost pull it together and say, okay, well, where is their agreement? Where are there some things that need some more work, and what are the key issues we need to resolve? I hope that answers your question. It's a little bit, yeah.
Councillor Byrne.
Excuse me, through you. So, I mean, do we have any further information on the backstop process? I mean, how will it look and who will fund it? I know that Wellington came out, was it this week or last week, saying that amalgamation is going to cost their ratepayers 185 million. That's not going to cost us anything like that. But if you extrapolate it out, I worked it out per population, we're going to look at maybe 14 million. So can we just simply say we can't afford this, especially with everything that's being thrown at us? And yeah, if you want us to do it, you fund it. What does backstop look like? Do we know?
Well, through you, your worship, I think for me that is a really interesting question. And part of the issue in this is that other than the material that has been released by the Minister and by the Department of Internal Affairs, we don't really have a huge amount of detail. And I think it is becoming a live issue. I mean, there are a number of councils around the country who are making the choice to say, well, there's just too many unknowns, we're not clear, we're going to leave it to the backstop approach. And of course, that'll all depend on who's in government, what the governing arrangements looks like, what their priorities at the time, and so some of the timetable, could end up being different, as we know. I suppose that if we kind of go right back to the discussion that we had when I was with you in sort of mid-late May, part of the judgment for you all as elected members is to sort of balance against that the opportunity to try and more significantly influence the process by putting in a Head Start proposal rather than being left to what might be dealt with through a subsequent government decision. I think my own view is I think they have deliberately. I think the government has fairly clearly left the backstop decision as literally what it has said, a backstop, and I think there's Ross, unless you've got more information, I'm not aware there's a huge amount of clarity about what might happen if you left yourself to that process.
No, I agree with you, Wayne. It is still quite undefined and opaque. I would look at this without having any detail on this, but I don't know, Wayne, if you were can think back to 1989, but I still think even though that was forced upon councils, a lot of the transition costs were borne by the councils. They weren't borne by the government. Certainly the decision making was done by the government. But and then on the flip side, if we are part of a policy process that the government wishes to be moved ahead, and not every region or not every council is, this is pure speculation on my part, but I think that's likely to be a factor in which regions are next considered for regional deals, whether there's investment opportunities out of that. So usually with most of these things, that the carrots and the sticks aren't clearly evident yet, but I'm imagining there'll be some form of carrot and stick arrangement.
And that's certainly my understanding. And I think the only other thing I'd add is, and Ross, you covered off in your introduction, and certainly it also appears at different parts through the paper. I think because of the nature of the process and the relatively limited ability that not only Central Hawke's Bay but other councils in the regions have had to engage with your communities, I think it's well understood, and I think also well understood in Wellington, that any proposal that would go in under the Head Start process would be appropriately, a proposal in principle, and would be appropriately caveated to ensure that there are further opportunities, over the next period of time. And again, Ross has kind of been through the timetable a bit to have that discussion. So I suppose if you sat back and thought, well, does putting in a proposal in effect bind us in almost like a contractual form? My view is the answer is it does not. This is more in the line of a policy process, as Ross has indicated. So I do think that the fact that there are kind of on-off ramps, over this process over the next period of time gives you a degree of flexibility, I think.
You didn't follow up?
Yeah, just because my concern obviously is that there's in the paper, there's obviously the high level savings, but there's no mention of how much even the Head Start program, if we continue to proceed, is going to cost us. And it's going to be more officer time, more consultants time. And that would be good to know, because, what are we committing ourselves to? Even if we have an off ramp in 6 months' time, what sort of costs are we looking at if we continue? Or are we better just to sit on our hands? And we've talked about in the past, the backstop was looking like our mayors sitting, running the regional model, sort of, I think that's what you've indicated in the past, Wayne. Is that sort of what the ministers have said the backstop would potentially look like?
Well, I mean, I think it's hard trying to anticipate where ministers might get to is always a fraught business, and on this one, it's kind of hard to know, because it partly also depends not only what happens within your region, but also what happens, across the country. I mean, so there'll be, so if you look at the media around the place, what is clear that there'll be a number of regions that will take up a Head Start proposal. There'll be a number of that have already said they won't, and so ministers and officials will have to kind of work over the next little while about almost kind of for them defining what success looks like. What is a kind of a critical mass for them to follow up this process. So look, I think the questions you raise, Councillor, are all absolutely valid questions. I mean, this whole thing is a balancing act, and in the end, the core judgment comes down to the extent to which you believe that there's an opportunity that you can influence by going through the Head Start process, versus effectively sitting back and waiting for backstop. Just on your question of cost, I would say, and obviously I'm, as one of the consultants you refer to, it's always a bit tricky to talk about yourself in this regard. But what I would say is that I think through the interim regional office, and I know under quite a bit of direction from the mayor, I think to date they've really pushed. It's been a pretty low cost model. Now, lots of officer time. I would not at all underestimate how much time Dylan and others have had to spend on this. And that's unfortunate because I know you've got many other things to do, but that's kind of the state of it. So I think there is certainly from the discussions I've been part of, there's been a pretty clear understanding about trying to do this well, but also trying to do it in the most low cost fashion possible.
Thank you.
Councillor Lennon.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Wayne, in your experience, where are the opportunities for us to be able to influence and be at the table? I just remember and reflect on Three Waters. We were quite at that time we were sort of front runners in that space, and so we sort of made a commitment to really be at the table, and it proved us well in the negotiations, and we were getting better off funding and things like that, to be able to come back to our community, well, right across New Zealand. Sadly, that's all gone. But in this process, where is the opportunity for us to be at the table? Is that in the backstop? Because then they're going to actually have to come to all those backstop councils and actually start to work out how they work with them, or is it actually in the next stage of progressing, simplifying local government?
Sure, I'm pretty firmly of the view that there's more influence by being involved in the Head Start process. I mean, the government have put quite a bit of political skin in the game on this one, and so there'll be, as I mentioned just before, there'll be a number of regions that will be participating, and there are a number that won't be. We already know from discussions with the Department of Internal Affairs that once proposals go in, there'll be quite a lot of work in a very short period of time to sort of get a decision paper through to cabinet. The theory is that cabinet would make a decision prior to the election, and then there would be this discussion after that. The other thing that links into us, and I think I mentioned to you in May, I'm not 100% sure, but I was the Crown negotiator for the Auckland City deal, so I have some experience of the whole kind of city regional deal process. So the government since then have signed two. The Auckland deal was first, and they've subsequently signed a deal in the Bay of Plenty. And the third one that is on the table, but yet to be signed, but I'm told, in reasonable shape, is sort of the Queenstown Lakes area. So the government has taken the view that looking forward, a number of additional regional deals would be a good idea. I think they're learning. Certainly, they're learning. It's like you do one, you do two, you do three. So they're learning from them, and the implication has been that those regions that kind of work in through the Head Start process, reorganise accordingly and stuff, will be in good shape to be considered for a regional deal, which I think's a pretty useful thing. The only last thing I'd kind of just mention, it's a sort of a brief anecdote, and I mean, and Andrew Little and the and the mayors in and around Wellington are currently looking at it. I recall when I was Prime Minister Key's Chief of Staff, and we'd catch up with Auckland, and it would be a mayor, a deputy mayor, maybe a chair of a council committee if there was a particular issue going on, and a chief executive, and it would be a very straightforward conversation. When we had to catch up with the Wellington region, it took quite a large meeting room to do that, because we had, Wellington, Hutt City, Upper Hutt, Pororua, Kapiti, 3 councils in the Wairarapa, and so on. And as a result, I think the engagement between central government and what might be described as kind of the Wellington region was never quite as straightforward and never quite as easy. So I do think, while it can be overstated, there are benefits in terms of engagement with central government for scale.
Taylor.
Yeah, just interested in recommendation 7. This is probably for Wayne and possibly for Ross, Mr. McLeod, that the single tier decision-making model and the two-tier decision-making model and the two-tier advisory model, the wording is provides direction on the following governance options. What is the onus on us today to actually pick one of those? Can we leave that as or? Because I think it's to put a comment to that, I think it's too early for us to be talking in that detail, regardless of what we decide with the single unitary or the two, with number 5. Yeah, can we, is that possible to not go into that level of detail in number 7?
I think from my perspective through you, Your Worship, I think it is possible, but I think it would be preferable to at least narrow it down somewhat. So, and I think you've got good grounds for doing that. So I think, sub option 5 there, number 7, the advisory board model, no one in our community has supported that at any time.
Yeah.
And also, I think the single tier decision-making model, I don't think I've heard really any support for that, where we have a unitary council. But those 3 in between, I think you've got some flexibility in there, and you could leave those as ors and just say, we prefer a 2-tier decision-making model, local and unitary, or if you go for a unitary. And we know there's detail in there that needs to be sorted out by discussion, but I think for this council to indicate a clear preference for having strong local board that can make local decisions on things that are important locally, recognising that regional things should be at the unitary level.
On that basis, Your Worship, if there's, depending on any more questions, I'd like to move
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
recommendations as a whole.
Yeah.
I just have one question, and just further to Councillor Taylor. So what you're asking us probably next week's workshop is that we define more our representation of what we take to the region of what's best for Central Hawke's Bay.
Yes, and I think as Wayne has indicated, there'll be work at an officer level before then to sort of try and look at what you've said, what Hastings has said, what Napier, what are up there saying stuff. What everybody's in common alignment on, and what are some of the issues that need to come back and be discussed further. But yes, answer your question simply through you.
So further to that, I'm just thinking of collaboration day. It would be good to have a clear understanding around this table of what our preferred option and representation is before we take it to the other councils, correct?
Through you, Worship, I think the process will be iterative, like we'll taking stuff backwards and forwards. But yes, I think you've got the workshop next week, the day before collaboration day. So I think that will put you in good stead as well. But the sort of, I think that's a good approach, Councillor Taylor, through you, Your Worship. I think don't lock everything down. Even if we don't have it in resolution, some discussion points around what we see as important in that space is good. Narrow down the things you're comfortable on today, and then allow that room for that back and forth, because people, just by virtue of people's different contexts, different councils, different things they'll be thinking about, and they won't be necessarily thinking about our context. So I know you had anything to add there.
No, Ross, totally agree. I do think the extent to which you can kind of narrow it down and then talk broadly about preferences would be good, because I think each of the different councils have their own perspective on things. So the extent to which there's some clarity around your perspectives, it just helps in the discussions with other councils. That's all I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think without trying to get into debate, Councillor Taylor's really ready to go. Just trying to think, Councillor, about what's the best model for us going forward, where if it is a unitary and it's going to be centralised more, likely up in one of the bigger cities, is how do we keep that connection? And so that's when I look at those. If you look at those 2, 3 and 4, which one of those, there's slight variances which I think offer more or less in terms of trying to keep that connection strong. Any other questions Councillor Margaret.
Yeah, thanks. So what's our trigger point if we decide we want equal representation in the two-tier system, and Napier and Hastings decide through their meetings today that they just want single tier? Is that a trigger point for us to withdraw, or do we keep on going? You know, what's our thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts are what each council decides today will be what it'll be, but we still have an opportunity to then go into discussions and negotiations. So I don't think if that scenario played out where they were, quite different to us, let's not count that as a loss, but it just as a starting position. If there a middle ground where we can meet, that sort of works for all of us. So I wouldn't say that's a trigger point, but it's just a starting point.
Your worship, I think I agree with that. I think whatever if we can't get other councils to reach a point where it's different from what this council prefers, or is significantly different to what council prefers, then that will come back to this table, and you will have the option of on the 5th saying thanks but no thanks. That's we're not locking in today.
Yeah. So does that mean if we drop out and go into backstop, will we be disadvantaged? And there's not enough information to tell us whether we will. That's the thing. It's
What it is.
But the judgment is possibly there possibly will be a disadvantage. But if what's being dished up in the Head Start isn't something that's palatable, then you just need to we'll just need to balance at that time. Is this palatable, or is it less palatable than being in the backstop, or is it slightly more palatable than being in the backstop? But I don't know about you, Wayne, but I'm optimistic given the discussion so far that that there will be something come out that can come back and be, may not be everything you want, but maybe close enough to, because I think realistically there's going to need to be a little bit of horse trading to get some things where that's the nature of these sorts of arrangements.
Yeah, and through you, Your Worship, I mean, I disagree with that, and I think I mentioned earlier on when Ross gave me the opportunity to make a few opening comments about the goodwill that's been pretty evident right across the right across the region, and I think there is a much better level of understanding than perhaps I thought there might have been from the bigger parts of the region, if you like, in a population sense, about some of the challenges you face and some of the representation opportunities and so on. So I think there is, my own view is that the way you've described it, Your Worship, is exactly right, that there'll be a starting point or a middle point, or however we want to define it, and then there'll be some discussions over the next couple of weeks. And then in the end, on the 5th of August, elected members around this table get the opportunity to make a decision.
That's good.
Yeah, just my concern would be, what influence as a smaller council do we actually have in the bigger discussions? Because obviously Napier and Hastings may make the decision to go together, and we will find that actually it's unaffordable, or we just don't get the representation, and we don't retain our local voice, so we say no thank you, so we decide to go down the backstop program. But they can actually say, well, we're taking Central Hawke's Bay with us, can't they? Do we still have the option to go backstop, or have we been pulled into Head Start without our
through you, Your Worship? I mean, I think this is one of those issues, I think, where what is strictly speaking in the departmental guidance and what's kind of happening in practice are two different things. That so far all of the discussions that both Lawrence and I have been involved in, across the region, even where sometimes they get a bit tricky, and I think of Wairoa, but even then they've been characterised by a lot of goodwill and a lot of openness to have a discussion. There's certainly been no suggestion that, oh well, we could, might is right, and as bigger authorities we could effectively kind of muscle our way to, and the small guys will have to kind of fall into line. There's been no suggestion of that at all. So I really feel that there's a negotiation to be had here, a discussion to be had here, and And, you know, on the basis that as a council today, you can sort of narrow down your preferences around some of the governance stuff, be it, you know, to the extent you can give Ross as your chief executive and council officers some clarity, a little bit of clarity around some of the preferences. Then there's a discussion to be had over the next little while, with every expectation of getting to a reasonable outcome. If in the end you feel on the 5th of August that that outcome isn't as good as you'd hoped for, then you've got an opportunity to make a decision at that point.
I think just to add to that, Wayne, and not wanting to certainly try and presuppose or put words in the mouths of ministers, and obviously there'll be central government elections in the intervening period, but the backstop process may look different if there is a part of a region that's gone ahead and part of a region that's opted out. It may not be that part of it may not be the big councils that are saying force in. If the government's looking at a map and saying, well, the logical backstop for this is to join it with this. So I'm not saying that would happen, but you know, a lot of sliding doors to go through before then. But that we don't know. But so far, as Wayne said, there has been goodwill. I have felt that Dylan and I and Will, when he's been involved in discussions, and even the sort of those councillors that joined in those council discussions with Napier and Hastings, there's been a willingness to listen, and I felt that the issues we've been raised have been heard and given some consideration.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it's definitely not saying that they're going to be bullies. Just my concern is if we look at our regional model as it happens at the moment, you hear Napier complaining that they don't have a hospital and how far they have to travel. Well, our people, our communities in Porongo have to travel a hell of a lot further to get to a hospital. Our children, when they have to go and play sport at the regional park, they have to go a hell of a lot further than anybody else in Napier. So I just want us to be seen in this picture, and I think it's important that we keep advocating for the fact that our communities always struggle already, and I just want to make sure that we have a strong voice and don't lose influence because we are a smaller player. Thank you. It wasn't really a question and I shouldn't have been.
I agree with you.
All good points. Councillor Annan.
Yeah, for me, I'm struggling with the fact that we haven't got anything written down as such yet. There's been lots of wonderful conversations, and I'm really heartened that from Wayne's perspective and you guys' perspective that there's a really goodwill in the region and all that sort of stuff. And so I guess my thing for the next step is a bit of a request, really. Could we maybe, even if it's just a strategic direction for moving forward, a policy on a page, it doesn't have to be huge, big document, but just a little bit of hey, this is from a Central Hawke's Bay perspective, and maybe the other councils want to do this too, Wayne. Just this is our guidelines for working. This is our expectations. This is the culture and the way that we're doing things. These are, so that we can actually start to really sort of firm up this practice and this way of moving forward past just being said at meetings and not being really captured into any kind of a real strengthened document. So yeah, that would be I would like to see that from now on, once we get through today, that the next step we need to start seeing every time we discuss this. Okay, guys, remember these are our guiding principles that we are working towards, and so that every one of those other councils know that as well, and we would like to know what they are thinking as well. And I'd say we're probably all quite well aligned, but there'll be some special stuff just for Tamatea Central Hawke's Bay that I think we need to nail.
Through you, Your Worship, I think that things, and jump in, Wayne, if I go off the rails here. I think things will start to move quite quickly from now on, because by the council meeting of the 5th of August, we will need to have in front of you a draft outline proposal for you to consider and sign off on. So that'll be quite a quick acceleration from here to there. We have had the MOU, I guess, set out some of those processes and how we will work together things. But I take your point. We will try to document in whether it's I'm not quite sure the format will take yet, but working papers or presentations for next week's workshop will still not quite probably be at that stage, but it will accelerate quite rapidly from here once we get these preferences and start, moving those together. What fits together well, and what are the bits that still need panel meeting.
Councillor Margaret.
Has any of the officers done an exercise on if we strip out the three waters out of rates, whether it looks better for us to have ring fencing or harmonisation? Has that been done?
Not to my knowledge. No, we haven't got to that.
Yeah, well, yeah, without doing it, I would think ring fencing might be to our advantage this time round. Which makes a big difference on where we're heading. I think, what the other councils are thinking, whether they're thinking, we've only got what was it, 5 or 7 million left in debt, compared with the other councils. It makes quite a huge. Yeah. Well, we are so.
Especially if you add up regional rates.
Long-term plans.
I think that exercise hasn't been done yet, and I don't think it'll meaningfully be done before the 5th of August. So I think those sorts of issues are still to be worked through in some detail. I think the debt figures in the agenda are interesting, and I think we will need to do that.
So we don't want to take the pain of ring fencing with 3 waters and then the opposite done to us and as an amalgamated unitary.
Yeah, I think just we don't have the detail on it, but it was interesting. There's been some information that still needs further refinement around regional council, where the money's drawn from and where the expenditure goes, and probably that works in favour of Central Hawke's Bay and is in terms of where more income comes from the urban areas. But we do need to do that detailed work for some of those how funding set up is addressed. And I think the water will be an interesting. Water done well will be an interesting. To see how that plays out when it becomes under an economic regulation.
Councillor Lawrence.
Interesting. We talk about all of this and everything that's being thrown at us, and I just noticed the policy Nationals has come out confirming their policy of the rates capping at 4% today. So we get through all of this and work out how it's going to work, and then you get sideswiped as well. So it's it's certainly some big decisions around it all that in a bigger picture.
Thanks, Kirsty. Yeah, we get on with questions. I had one just around, so it's mentioned in the paper about the contingency, and you mentioned it, Wayne, around the community consultation. And I was thinking, pre-reading before coming today, is you could probably add to that list of, but you did make the point about this isn't a binding contract, and so I guess do we just, to protect ourselves, do we just assume that, or do we note anything that at each step of the way this has to provide all the benefits that we're looking for, but mostly including affordability and sustainability? Do we just assume that, or will that form part of the August 9th proposal if we get that far, do you think?
Your worship, I wouldn't just assume it. I think partly it's a language thing, but I do think as we, on the basis that assuming councils do make a decision to progress that when these things, when it gets drafted, I think just ensuring that there are appropriate caveats around some of that. And I think because what it also does, and this comes back to Ross's response to Councillor Muggeridge around debt and so on, there will be, there will be a chunk of work that still has to be done after the 9th of August. It's just simply impossible, either for our region or for other regions, to get it done beforehand. So I think, there will be the opportunity in any final proposal, I think, to ensure that there are enough caveats in there to be clear about what work still has to be done to get it over the line.
Yeah. Any more questions? Otherwise, we could come back to Councillor Taylor's eagerness.
Before I do, Your Worship, would it be number 2 talks about the stuff we've already agreed to explore, Head Start, agreed to enter into. Can we could also there, and that we add our caveats to that we agreed on our non-negotiables or whatever within that recommendation.
I'd almost like to see one tack on the end once we've dealt with those, because I think one of the caveats I'm quite clearly hearing is substantial community engagement. Another
Add it to the new one.
You put one on the end, yeah, and then another one might be that also making it subject to more detailed financial modelling of the financial implications would be a good one to add in there too. But I would suggest when we get to the recommendations that we don't just move them on block, we move through them in seriatim and do the first 3 and then each one where there's an or, so we're clear what we're doing. If that's okay.
I was going to move them en bloc, Your Worship. So if the thinking around the table is to do them separately, then if nobody seconds that, I'm happy to.
Well, that doesn't. That's not necessarily mutually exclusive. We can move them on block and then just put them in segments so everybody's with the same mover and seconder.
Okay.
So do them bit by bit, but with one mover and seconder.
Yeah, it's easier for Will that way.
Yeah.
Thanks. Was I sitting there looking at it?
Probably me dragging out the words in seriatim didn't help, but I knew what I mean.
Okay.
So now I'm lost as to what I'm actually doing.
On block,
One at a time. So we're voting on them at one at a time, or are we debating each one at a time?
That's three.
Some.
Okay, so would I like to move 1, 2, and 3
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
as they are? I don't wish to speak.
So, all right. Just sort of wave out if you are wanting to speak at any time. I miss you, but all those in favour?
Right.
Against? Great.
I'd like to move 4I.
Okay, so just to be clear, that's continue on the Head Start process. Do we have a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor again. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes. My comments really apply to sort of the whole lot, so I'll use it. I'll say them now, and I think no, I beg your pardon, I won't. I want to do it later on. Yeah.
All good. Okay, so all those in favour of continuing in the Head Start process?
Right.
Against? It's carried.
Very staff, eh?
I'd like to move 5I, that we continue with a single unitary authority.
Okay, and I'm just point of clarification, that's okay if we have to fall back into the only 3 of
Three.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. Or
So maybe I move 5I and 6.
I think that would be.
Yes, good idea.
Second.
And Councillor Annan second that.
Right, one moment. And 6, 1.
Six.
Okay, so
Yeah,
agreeing to a single unitary authority and also a contingent pathway in case not all 4 councils decide. So let's move and second it. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
I'd like to move number 7, your worship. 7, 2, 3 and 4.
7, 2, 3 and 4.
Direction on the following governance options, the 2-tier decision-making model.
And keeping those 3 as all options, okay?
So we just add a couple of words that council provides direction that it prefers the following governance
Oh, yes,
options.
yeah.
And then just two-tier decision-making model section of it. Yeah, so just go
7.
up to
7.
Up.
go up.
Right, yeah.
So if you
Sorry.
so if you add provides direction at the top and 7 up the top.
Sorry. Are we? I would ask you, because there's a number that you number 1.
Right. And 7, it says provides direction. Put the colon after direction.
Yep.
That it prefers. No, sorry.
Oh, yep. Sorry.
Take away the colon. Right.
No,
Common.
Just go back a few steps. So get rid of the colon. Provides direction that so that
No, in there.
it prefers
Three of those options.
the following governance options.
Tell you when they.
Yep.
Then go scroll down to the number 5. That's it.
Hasn't moved there.
And then cross out 2-tier advisory model in number 5. In that 5 part.
I've moved.
Do we have a second? Oh, do we have a seconder for preferring those 3 2-tier decision-making models to explore going forward? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Can I ask one question for
Yeah, sure.
consideration? Up to the mover and seconder, would it be okay to add in number 1 as well? Because I think those, do we have to make that decision today? Like, or give that direction today? I think that we actually really need some financial modelling on this, because when you think about representation and even just like the whole idea of this is to simplify and also to ensure that our ratepayers are, it's financially acceptable for them. It's quite an expensive 2, 3 and 4 can be probably quite expensive models. They're ideal, absolutely, and the representation, which is really important, but then equally important is also saving money for our people as well, and then with a 4% rates cap on there. So I think we still need to be open to
Mr. Mayor, it's certainly open to the council to do whatever you wish to do. I think it would not be in keeping with the strong feedback we've had about that strong local decision making, but absolutely open to the council to decide.
over that year, because we didn't talk to our community at the time about the cost of this as well. So that's the thing, that's that next layer that we need to really nail down with our community as to they're thinking that they're going to get things cheaper, or we really need to understand that actually is that even the case, and give them that choice. But that's just something that I'd like to see that we keep that option still on the table.
It's, yeah, that's why I quite like the, with keeping 2, 3 and 4 available. I think 4, offers the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
of both worlds.
Both of that are.
Only one.
So more queries on this point, Councillor Beard?
Yeah, I was only really supporting 4 because, I mean, that was option D, wasn't it, that we took out to everybody? And it was quite strongly supported by our community. And when I think about what localism is, and I think sometimes there will be a trade-off that actually you might pay a little bit more to actually get that local voice. And I think that's, when you look at the submissions, people actually value it. And even this morning, they know that bridge can cost a hell of a lot of money and actually they want it. And sometimes people actually just want stuff even no matter what it's going to cost. So I think 4 speaks to that. That's why I really just want 4 left on the table and the rest removed. But yeah.
It does only say provide direction on it.
Yeah.
Just a note just back to Councillor Annan, was weren't there some costings on that, all those things? I know looking through some of those costings, and it wasn't that favourable.
I think
But
there
that
are,
was high level costings.
Yeah.
there are costings just at the management and governance level costs on pages.
And I think that's only come out this week. It hasn't been out to our communities.
No.
Yep.
There are significant savings on the status quo, and there are potential savings, but not that significant between the 1 and the D or the 4 that you were referring to, Councillor Byrne. So probably not material, and in the option, this doesn't factor in the costs that can come through consolidation and more streamlined contracting, and those sorts of things. It's more focused on those governance and management level costs.
So going back, a question, Your Worship, going back to the conversation before about what happens if Napier and Hastings decide something else. They may both prefer I, so we then come in with our negotiations. So we might end up with that yet if they say, well, actually, might be cheaper for you guys. Are you sure you don't want it? But here's the local voice we'll give you in return. So yeah, I think the room for negotiation at the other end. It doesn't rule it out completely. We're just saying we prefer the others. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, just checking you're happy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we've got
Just correct us on what we're voting on now.
7, 2, 3 and 4.
2, 3 and 4.
Kevin?
Yeah.
You don't agree with the second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, look, this is pretty important, so
Yeah.
give you to take time. If you'd like to speak now.
So we're at the coalface of the biggest shake-up of local government since I was in the 7th form. The chance to help shape it is exciting, but it's imperative that it's not those who sit around these tables that make the final decisions. We're best placed with knowledge and experience to start this process, to know more about what this might mean. But hence there's a recommendation coming up that I would like added about the consultation at the other end of the process, but that's number 11, I think, at the moment. A couple of the submissions talked in detail about regional, joint, local decision-making processes, regional and local share, and one in particular, I don't want to create another layer of bureaucracy by having a big council with little councils underneath it. And I think allowing us to have these 3 options in there gives us room to manoeuvre. And I'd like to quote one of the submissions, page 110. Instead of what our governance structure should look like, we should be looking at where the decision is best made. And I like that sentence. We should take this opportunity to look at all the decisions we make and then figure out how they're best made. So rather than come up with a governance structure first, we actually look at the decisions those governance structures would have to make. Hence, liking the two-tier decision-making model.
Right. Yeah, you got some.
Yeah, I'd just like to carry on from what Councillor Taylor said. We're happy to move this forward, but you know, this is a mindset change for all of us in Hawke's Bay, all councils. It's not easy, but there's a positive feel out in our community and the Hawke's Bay community. Numerous discussions I've had in community here and the wider Hawke's Bay community, I'm actually quite encouraged how positive people are towards a change to Hawke's Bay Inc. I studied the 2015 document that was handed to me last week, and there's a huge change since then, noting that it won't be very palatable for representation in Central Hawke's Bay. For me now, it's around this table to firm up on a strong representational model that will see CHB particularly prosper in the future.
Yeah, Councillor Annan.
I mean, happy to move this forward today. I am concerned though, because I was around in the last amalgamation conversation, being also going through the local water done well process as well. And it does worry me that the government often use us to go and have hard conversations with our community for options that really only suit them. And we're out there trying to get the best deal for the people that are most important to us, which is our ratepayers and our wider community. So, and the title of it is actually just quite telling that it's about making things simpler for the government. And I would have preferred it if it had been based on the feedback from the Future for Local Government, which was completely ignored, which was all about strengthening local governments. I would have probably felt a bit more okay about this and had a bit more confidence. I have confidence at us at a local level. I think Wayne and the team that are doing a really good job of Hawke's Bay for Hawke's Bay. But yeah, I'm really concerned with our government, if I'm honest, and talk to other political parties as well, and they're quite happy to see a whole lot of those annoying councils gone as well, which is sad to say. And sadly, nothing I've seen so far for local water done well, which has been a very interesting similar process. All for simplifying local government is actually going to give our people what they actually genuinely want, which is affordable rates. That's going to be the thing that will help deal with the cost of living. So I'm pleased that as a council we're keeping that front and centre, and I really want to see that actually acknowledged and written in papers now. Yeah, and I'm also concerned that local government is not necessarily pushing back, but then like Councillor Greer said, maybe we are ready as a sector for change more than we were in 2015, which is really good. But then it also does worry me that, as a sector, we've been publicly bashed quite severely in the last couple of years, and making us as elected members face up to policy decisions that are made completely separate from us, and then bashing us for the result of it. And it's a really unfair place for us as elected members to be put into, and that really concerns me. So yeah, I'd like to see that for us. Well, because I don't know that the simplifying local government thing is actually going to really work. So that's another thing I just want to signal there as well. We're asking 16 different regions to come up with what potentially could be 16 different plans. And I just don't think that long term that's going to be accepted, because they've already said simply they want to simplify local government, and having 16 different plans is not going to be simple. So just makes me think, I'm a bit wary about that. So I don't know, I think at a local level and also for our regional level, we need to start having total changes around we're working to actually strengthen our local government, and we're going to enter into that Head Start process by pushing that culture rather than making it simple for the government. We're going to make this about strengthening local government for our communities, our region, our people who are most important. So yeah, that's my little thing that I'd just sort of like to just have recognised and say now.
Thank you, Councillor Annan. I think Councillor Byrne was next, and then we'll go to someone.
I echo exactly what Councillor Annan said, because localism matters. It's a principle the current government campaigned on, and one that we know our community strongly values. They reflected it in the submissions. Local water done well, even though I have huge reservations, was even designed with the intention of keeping water management close to the community. And you know, the push to simplify and amalgamate local government risks eroding our local representation, I think, unless we, you know, keep pushing. Our community has been clear they are open to exploring options, and I support that, but affordability and maintaining local voice are critical. In the regional council model, representation has always been a challenge. And our mayor knows that more than anyone. We cannot afford to lose our voice. After the cyclone, our district councillors advocated widely in the regional council realm. I don't think this is about patch protection. It is about ensuring our community's assets, places, spaces, infrastructure are not overlooked in a bigger system. They're all important to us, and evidence here and overseas shows that bigger is not always better. This process feels rushed with only high-level modelling of savings, but no idea of how much it's going to cost us all. So I support continued participation in the Head Start process, but I want to see off-ramps included. If it does not benefit Central Hawke's Bay, whether due to cost, outcomes, or changes in government policy, I want to know that we can get off and just maybe make ourselves an island, the Vatican City, maybe. Our priority must remain clear: protect affordability, preserve local representation, and ensure decisions stay close to our community. Thank you.
Councillor Boynan.
Well, very similar to what I was going to say, so well done, Councillor Byrne. I still like two-tier number 4, that shared benefit cost levels. I'd love to see it. Probably I wouldn't get it, but I'd like to get close to it. That's why I was sort of pushing for that one. And secondly, yeah, I am disappointed because when I go out and consult, I like detail. Exactly like Councillor Muggeridge. We are very similar in some ways. And it's just a bit heartening when you go out there and people are asking, and I just say, I can't tell you, sorry. What these are the facts. Well, these are the things we'll put in front of you, and I can't give you any more. And I think it's a bit, I wouldn't say dishonest, but it just makes me annoyed because I think it's a very, very important when you're making these big decisions, the biggest decision we're ever going to make, and I can't even give them the proper details. And it makes me annoyed. I know it may come, but I think we had a right to give them a bit more before we did it. That's all.
No more speakers. Look, I'd just like to say, well, first of all, actually, thank you to everyone, to elected members and to staff that put in the effort over the last couple of weeks to get the feedback that we did from community, because I think we'd be sitting here struggling, wondering what to do if we didn't get that. So that was really good to achieve. So well done to everyone who participated. And I think just listening to everyone this morning, really pleased with the position that it looks like we're going to take, which is support the further exploration of this, but still keeping in mind all the concerns that we do have. And as Councillor Minor had pointed out, the limited information still, which is still to come. So I think we are in a good space. I think probably the key point of discussion with Wayne this morning has been around where's our best place to influence, and it's in this process. It's not outside of it. And so while it may not have been the path we would have chosen, it's kind of the path we're in. And so if that is the best place to be, then let's carry on that path for now, keeping those concerns front of mind and influencing as best we can to get the best outcome we can for Central Hawke's Bay.
A wee one. I think the funding pathways that Councillor Annan talked about is really important, and a lot of our infrastructure issues may very well have started in the 1989 amalgamation that was sort of forced down. So this is our opportunity to grow up, to grow the issue from the ground up. It's important to have a say in how this looks, how it shapes up, and as Councillor Moynihan said, to give our community true consultation with details at the pointy end of the process. But I think for now, I'm quite content that people who are, the advice we're being given by, you know, Wayne and Lawrence and others is giving us, and the experience and knowledge that we have around the table, not just here, but in Napier and Hastings and other places around the country, watching what other councils are doing. You know, some ratepayers don't even know the difference between their regional council rate and their district council rate. And so I think those with the experience and the knowledge driving this process, helping this process continue, and then, but we must have that consultation and more involvement at the pointy end when we're actually making the decisions, not just looking at how we might continue.
Thank you. Right, all those in favour? Against? Right. We do just have what have we got left? 8, 9, and 10.
8, 9,
and,
10.
and the
I'm just working on some words for 11 that I might get Annalie to type up when we get there, so you can then panel beat them.
Okay, shall we do 8, 9, and 10 then while we wait for 11? I move 8, 9, and 10.
okay, so that's
I'll second. That is.
just our next steps, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
bearing in mind 11's going to have something about likely to have something about consultation and our yeah. No.
okay.
Finance.
Ross has got something
I'll
else.
give you some words.
So yeah, I move 8, 9, and 10. Sorry.
Okay. Right, and Councillor Byrne was second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried.
So 11, that's a good start, Annalie. Can you just go to the start of 11? Cursor at the start of 11.
Yep. Start is done. It's coming up delayed. A little bit delayed.
Oh. We state that it is conditional on full community consultation. Thank you, Sarissa, that's fine. Comma instead of full stop.
Yeah.
Comma after 27.
Oh, yep.
Financial modelling. We confirm the benefits.
Sorry, just say again.
Financial modelling to confirm the benefits of the proposed local government reorganisation model. Comma. And development. And this it's may or may not what you're after that. And development.
I think it's supposed to be development.
Of a model for Māori representation And the giving effect to treaty settlement redress. Arrangements, redress arrangement.
Settlement.
Settlement.
Question of clarification, what's the difference giving effect to treaty settlement redress versus fixed Waitangi? What's the
Essentially, the treaty settlement redress, the main thing that our engagement regionally has highlighted is the importance of the regional planning committee.
Oh, that's right.
Sits with the regional council, and that's a part of there's an act of parliament that gives effect to it, but it needs to be transferred appropriately into this new. Maybe if we put sorry, Annalie, just the line up where we've got development of a model, and we make that of an effective model. Arrangements on the end, redress arrangements.
the brackets planning committee or something, because a lot of people won't know a lot of people won't even know what the regional planning committee isn't or does even, I think.
Yeah, there may be other slight ones, but yeah, if we put after the before the full stop, if you put a bracket that says including in particular the Hawke's Bay Regional Planning Committee.
Yeah.
Just a question, on married representation, the referendum that was held at the last election, does that carry any weight anymore?
Through you, your worship, I think it carries weight for decision making as it goes forward. But I think the interesting thing about the engagement we've had is that there hasn't been necessarily specified that there needs to be this outcome or this outcome, but there is a desire to have effective models of representation. Hasn't been discussed, but Auckland ended up with a statutory board through their process. I think there's been there's really good goodwill, and it hasn't been unique to. And wider they come in, they do have a Māori ward, so there's a lot to be worked through. It's just really just wanting to note as the discussions have flagged that this is still a live and open issue that needs to be resolved, and it may end up being resolved before we get to August the 5th, but it may not be fully resolved by then.
Dog on my property. That's not yours. It should be Hawke's Bay Regional Planning Committee.
Sorry.
Yeah. Obviously.
RBC.
Great. Councillor Taylor. Yeah,
I'm happy to move 11.
Councillor Nepi up to second. Anyone?
Wayne, you're okay with that?
Yes, absolutely. Through you, your worship. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Would you like to speak, Councillor Taylor? Or
No, I think I said the comments before just about the having the knowledge and the experience around these tables, but before it actually becomes real or at the other end of the process, we really do need those to know that it's sustainable and affordable, more so than the current model. We need to know that the community has had a bigger part and a bigger say And as you've just explained that the RPC needs to be, make sure that we've got an RPC or an equivalent in the new model.
Right.
Yeah, let's go with Alan's statement.
Okay. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, you put your hand up there, Matt. Wayne, thank you very much for all you've done this morning, all you've done up till now, and the work that has to continue. So we appreciate you having you on board as part of the team, and we'll no doubt see a lot of you over the next 3 weeks.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Okay, morning, everybody.
Probably also just like to acknowledge your worship the work of Mr. Muggeridge, who's not here, but who has led this work for the council, and also the people of the IRO who are also are sort of supporting Wayne's and Lawrence's work in drawing that work together. So
Okay,
absolutely, yeah. Okay.
Shout out to Bridget Bennett too. She did a lot of legwork in those community consultation meetings.
Oh, and just all the night out and everything. It was a massive undertaking.
Team that was with them.
Yeah. Okay, that's us. Good effort this morning. We'll break for morning tea.
thank you. Clear direction.
Buggy free.
One, 117.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've finished simplifying local government. And on to next agenda item, page 117. Mrs. Harvey, welcome. Population and household predictions for the LTP.
Morena tātou. The report that's in front of you is asking council to adopt a population and household projection scenario as a base modelling assumption for the 27-37 long-term plan. The recommendation in the report is to adopt the medium scenario prepared by Market Economics. So this is a technical planning decision. It does not limit council to any specific project or level of service or rates increase or anything, or investment decisions. It's those decisions will all come back through the long-term plan. What this decision does is it gives officers one consistent growth assumption for use across the financial modelling, infrastructure planning, activity management plans, development contributions. So they're all things that set the way forward for the long-term plan. So the updated projections show that Central Hawke's Bay is still expected to grow, but at a more moderate rate than what was assumed in the last 3-year plan. So for the 27-37 period, the 3 scenarios are the low, which is around 860 additional people and 420 additional households. And then the medium scenario is around 1,900 additional people and 960 additional households. And then the high scenario projects around 3,040 additional people and 1,500 additional households. So officers are recommending the medium scenario because it provides the most balanced and evidence-based assumption. It still plans for continued growth, while reflecting that the updated evidence that growth is likely to be more, a bit more moderate than what was previously assumed. So the low and high scenarios are still really useful because they can be used for sensitivity testing, just so that we can understand the impacts of growth either goes higher or lower than what the medium scenario is projecting. So that's the main risk really in any of these. It is a projection. The risk is that actual growth may differ from what we adopt for the scenario for the long-term plan. But we'll manage that by monitoring like building consents, subdivision activity, population and household data, and all the other trends and indicators as we are developing the long-term plan. And then, as part of the next long-term planning cycle, we look at them again. So even though we're saying this is for like a 10 to 30 year scenario, so in 3 years' time, that will be revisited again like we've done this time. So in summary, the medium scenario gives council a clear and consistent basis for preparing the long-term plan. And the recommendation in front of you today is that you receive the report and adopt the medium scenario. I'm happy to take any questions, but just before I do, I just want to make a correction to resolution 2, if I may. Just to the date, because it says in the resolution at the moment that the report date is the 6th of June, 2026. It's actually the 8th of July, 26. So if, I'd like to make that change, please. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Byrne.
Through you, just reading the report, it's pretty self-explanatory, and medium does seem sensible, but in the 3 years, you say, we can change it and reflect any changes while we're setting the long-term plan. But in the 3 years, if we have got it wrong and, there is a dip and, particularly when it comes to development contributions, what are the implications? We just don't get the income that we were projecting.
Yeah, so we would be projecting the income that we would be projecting. If, say, for example, if it was low,
compared to the medium, the income that we're projecting wouldn't be there. That's the risk. Do we have an opportunity at annual plan time to relook at development contributions?
Yes, so development contributions can be adjusted annually if we chose to. Currently, we only update the population projections every 3 years, but no legal barrier to us doing it annually if we chose to, and then we could therefore recalculate the PCs based on updated data.
As Councillor Ben said, pretty self-explanatory report, so well done there. Any further questions? Oh, Councillor Moynihan.
I can't remember if I read them all, but when you analyse all that information, do they account for the ageing population?
Yes. Yes, that is explicit in the report, and there's also in the actual results on the appendices, there is one there that actually shows the age cohorts as well throughout the period, and it does indicate an aging population.
And the other one was Stats New Zealand. I believe that's all changing. So is that a factor anymore?
So I believe that these results are based on Stats New Zealand, and I can't. It's in the report. I think it was a Stats 2024. I think in the report. I'm not.
In the sense it's going to change how they're doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how accurate will be.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be for any modelling. Later modelling later than this. Once that census data becomes available, then they use that. The modelling.
Councillor Margaret.
Have we checked on previous assumptions, how close they actually became to what actually happened to reality? What percentage was the margin that were away?
So from what I've seen, from the 3-year plan, they were quite ambitious and quite high. Although I believe council did adopt the medium scenario, but it was still a very ambitious scenario as to what has played out. But at the time, and this is the thing about it, it's a projection of knowing what's happened, what the trends are. And at the time, that 3-year plan, things were looking pretty good, I believe. Or when they did that prior to the cyclone, but there was, so it just depends on what's happening at the time, and it's a photo projection, and but I believe that it was very optimistic last time, and I feel that this pattern and this scenario is possibly a lot more realistic.
So Nepi up to.
Just following off from Councillor Moynihan's question, was there also assumptions taken on the birthing rate because of Central Bay? Because there's quite a lot of new mamas that are coming along and a lot of pregnancies at the moment.
Yes, so my understanding is that it's the demographic information that they use. They do take into account, like births and deaths when they factor in their work on the predictions. And also the migratory patterns as well of people coming in and going and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Seasonal work in that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would they take into account back to the ageing population and what facilities, if that's what you want to call them, where older people tend to move from their own house into villages, homes and stuff. Do they take that into account? Because there's a real, seems as the population ages, there's definitely a lack of that type of facility here in St Hawke's Bay. And like just yesterday, I heard of another person sending their mother up to Havelock North to that too, Jerry, because we just don't have the. So do they take, as well as all the stats, that sort of thing into account?
Yeah. So, and I guess the one of the good things of doing this piece of work as well is it does give us and give, you know, those people that, or those places that are looking to invest in that type of infrastructure here, it does give them some modelling to use for that. And it does say in the report, I think, that the Waipukurau, the households are projected to increase in Waipukurau, but smaller units, so like smaller housing. You know, and that's taking into consideration that the aging population, you know, will come more into town or into the you know, the centre, but they don't need the big houses, or, you know, so there's likely to be the need for more smaller housing. And yes, like, you know, if there was any retirement village or whatever that was planning on coming here, that does support some of that infrastructure that's needed.
No more questions?
I'm just happy to move.
Move the recommendations as they are. You're happy to accept the medium projection?
I'll second.
Councillor Moynihan will second. Any further discussion you'd like to speak on that?
No, I think we've all been covered.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So this brings us to the close of our meeting. We've just got the date of the next meeting scheduled for Wednesday, the 5th of August. It's Wednesday because I've got memory that's the R&P sector meeting on Thursday, Friday that week. So could I please move that we set the next date, Wednesday, 5th of August? Second to Councillor Byrne. All those in favour? Against? Carried. That brings us to the end of the meeting, and we've got workshop to follow. Yeah.